Hi, I'm here to talk about the Decaf project. I hope that you've received your coffee. I know some of you haven't received the coffee yet. We've had delays with shipping, partly as a knock-on effect of the Canada Post strike, which has affected all other carriers, and they have a real backlog. Hopefully it will get to you on time. So I'm going to tell you what to do once you have your coffee, and if you're ready to taste these coffees. This is something that we do all the time here at Rosso, to evaluate coffees, to test samples of new coffees and to try different things. So you should have 4 different coffees, and what we want to do is we want to taste all these blind. So what we need is at least 1 cup for each coffee, ideally 2 cups for each coffee, because there might be some variance in the beans, so you might be judging a coffee just on 1 cup, whereas 2 cups might give you a more accurate representation of that coffee. What we want to do is label these coffees however you want. I'm going to label them 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to do the same for my cups. If you don't want to write on the bottom of your cups, you can use a little sticker or something. So I'm doing 2 cups for each coffee. Now the key to this process is to make sure that you don't mix anything up, and also make sure that you label everything, because believe me, I've cupped coffee and I've forgotten to label everything on the bottom, which isn't a good idea. The cups we're using hold about 200 milliliters of water, and then you put 12 grams of coffee in that. Okay, so then what we need is a scale so we can accurately measure the beans out. We weigh them out into each bowl or cup. So I'm going to weigh 12 grams of coffee. The ratio of coffee to water that we use is 60 grams per liter. So we find that 12 grams works pretty well. It's a good amount of coffee for you to taste, and also gives the opportunity to taste it several times and also to brew some from your 100-gram bag. So now we have the 4 coffees all weighed out, all in the whole bean form still. So you can see that the colors are very different of the different types of coffee, so you can easily recognize which is which once you weigh them out. So what we're going to do is we're going to grind them before we mix them up. That way it helps us to keep them, to keep it more blind and less bias in it. Okay, so I've ground all these samples. The grind we use is like a medium fine grind. One thing, depending on what kind of grinder you have, some grinders have more retention than others. So what this means is once you grind a coffee, there's lots of that coffee gets stuck in different parts of that grinder. So especially like a commercial grinder or like a larger electric grinder, you will get lots of particles still stuck in there. And so they don't contaminate the following cup. What we tend to do is use a few grams of coffee to purge the grinder in between cups. So I've done this for all 4 cups. So now I need to randomize these cups so I don't know which ones they are. It's often good to get somebody else to do this because it's very hard. If you already know which ones they are, it's very hard to do it yourself. You can kind of try and fool yourself by moving them around. But I often get somebody else to do it for me, and then I don't know which position they were in. Now we have the coffees all ready, we're going to begin evaluating these coffees. So what we use is a cupping form. This one we use is from the SCA, and it evaluates several different categories. So we have fragrance, which is the dry fragrance. So we're going to evaluate the aromas on the coffee before we add water. And then we have aroma, which is once we've added the water, then we evaluate the fragrance again. Then we have flavor. We have aftertaste, and what this is once you've already tasted the coffee, this is what you're left with in the mouth. Then we have acidity, so this is like the brightness of the coffee, which can be like high or low, and it can have different qualities, like good or bad, or remind you of a certain thing, like lemon or apple. Then we have sweetness. This is self-explanatory. Then we have mouthfeel, so this is the body. So this can either be high or low, and it can have a different quality to it. It can be creamy or oily or thin. And then we have an overall score. So this is your overall impression of the coffee. This is where you can if you really like a coffee or not, you can add points there. So we use a form like this to record our impressions of each of these coffees. While I'm getting everything ready, I covered each sample up. This is to trap the aromas in, so there's more there for you to smell. We just use these little takeout lids for anything you have to hand that you can cover it with, or you can use your form and put it over the top of the cups if you like. So I'm going to go ahead and start evaluating these coffees. So on my form, I have called these A, B, C, and D. So I don't know which ones these coffees are. So I'm going to begin by evaluating the dry fragrance. So it helps if your table is like fairly high. Maybe you have a breakfast bar, something like that, because then you can get down and get your nose right in the bowls. And you want to have a good sniff of each one, and then write down anything that comes to mind, whatever you can smell in that coffee. And then you write the notes down, and then if you want, you can give it a score. So we have scores from 1 to 9 of each of these categories, and like 5 being like a good coffee, and 9 being exceptional, and 1 being on the lower end of the scale. Okay, so I've made notes on the dry fragrance of these 4 coffees. I'm not going to tell you what they are because that's for you to experience when you get these coffees. If you like, it's good to try and guess which ones you think are which ones, which one is the decaf, which one isn't the decaf, and which are the other 3 decafs. So I tend to try guessing what the coffee is, and then as I progress through the cupping, I might change my mind and switch them. And now we're going to add the hot water to these. So we're going to pour the hot water from left to right, use a timer. I'm using the timer that's built into the scale. And we want to brew these for 4 minutes. So I start the timer. And we pour each coffee in turn, making sure that we fill to the same level each time. We use the water as hot as we can get it, which in Calgary is 96 degrees. But generally, if you can use boiling water. So these coffees are now brewing and extracting all the flavors. So the standard house kettle is enough to do 8 cups. Not enough to fill these though, so I'm just going to fill these. Okay, so while the coffees are brewing, I'm going to evaluate the wet fragrance now, or the aroma. So again, get your nose as close as you can without burning it, and seeing what you can smell. So you may notice at this stage that some of the coffees will look slightly different, depending on the density of the beans, how much gas is trapped inside those beans. They might appear different, the crust. So we're almost at the 4-minute mark. The next stage is we have cupping spoons. You can use a soup spoon or something at home. I tend to have 3, so this one is actually for tasting, and these 2 will be for clearing the crust on the coffees. I also have rinse water here for each one. So what we're going to do is we're going to break the crust, and we do another aroma evaluation. So I tend to stir the coffee 3 times afterwards. The main thing is to be consistent with each cup, and I'm rinsing my spoon between each cup. So now the crusts are all broken. I need to clear these. So I tend to use 2 together to kind of scoop the crust off and rinse twice. So now the crusts are all cleared, I'm ready to start tasting. So these coffees are all a bit hot right now, so I'm going to wait like 5 or 10 minutes for them to cool down before I start cupping these. Okay, so now I'm going to start tasting. So once again, I use the spoon. It's a bit like a soup spoon, and it allows you to get a small amount on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to aspirate it in our mouth. So we're going to slurp it, which makes an awful noise, but it gets it right across your whole palate and what they call retronasal, so that's like up into the back of your nose, because most of the flavors you're experiencing are through your nose, not on your tongue. So once again, like the aroma, each time I taste, I'm going to write down anything that I taste, any impressions I have, and I can give it a score. And making sure we rinse between each cup. So what you'll find is, as the coffees cool down, they will change flavors. So what's actually happening is that the chemical compounds, the flavor compounds in the coffee, some of them are forming, some of them are breaking down. So the coffees are actually changing as they cool down. So what you'll find is you shouldn't finalize your scores and your flavor notes until you've tasted the coffee several times throughout the entire process as they've cooled down. Sometimes there may be one coffee which is your favorite to start with, and then you may find that it switches and another one starts to come out more during the cupping. Okay, so I've finished my evaluation. I've been tasting these coffees. They're all tasting great. And they all taste like I tried to roast these coffees so they were as close as possible to each other. And I think I've succeeded. They do taste very similar. They're a similar roast degree. And I definitely have favorites. I've made some guesses. I don't know if I'm right or not. Okay, so there you have it. This is how you cup the coffees. So I hope you enjoy this experience and when you're doing this. And you can give us any feedback. We'd love to know which one was your favorite, which one was your least favorite. It's always interesting to know. And we hope if you enjoy any other coffees that you ordered with this project, that you'll order some more from us. Thank you so much.